All right, let's talk about jury selection. Let's say you've decided to go forward to trial, and now you're going to put your life in the hands of 12 strangers on a felony, 6 strangers on a misdemeanor. How does that process work? Well, they bring in a panel of potential jurors, which is called the VOIR. Members of the VOIR are called VOIRmen. These are members of the community that have no affiliation with you or the state. They don't know anything about the case. They don't know anything about the DAs. They don't know anything about you. In a felony case, they bring in between 65 to 80 people. And on a misdemeanor case, they bring in about 30 to 35 people. And then we subject them to a bunch of questions. Questions to determine whether or not these folks are biased in favor of the state or biased in favor of the defendant. This is a very delicate process because people don't want to come in and admit that they're biased or they cannot be fair or impartial. So it's really more of an art than a science. The judge will start with her questions. First, she'll read the indictment. And be careful when the indictment is read, look around, see how people react. Because depending on the charges, the very temperature in the room can change the moment the charges are read. Then she's going to start asking questions. Questions with regard to the Fifth Amendment, whether or not the defendant takes a stand. Questions with regard to the presumption of innocence. Questions regarding the burden of proof, things of that nature. She will also ask questions about their jobs, if they're retired. She will ask if they have any scheduling conflicts. They've got a trip with non-refundable tickets, or they have an operation coming up, which would make them ineligible to serve. Then the state gets up, and they get to ask questions also with regard to these legal concepts, but particularly to determine whether or not the person could be biased in favor of the defendant. And then the defense gets up, and they get to ask questions to see whether or not they would be biased in favor of the state. But that is the key. We have to get them to say that they would be biased or not be able to be fair or impartial on this type of case. For example, if it was a DWI and a particular person on the VOIR lost a loved one to a drunk driver, that may not be the kind of person that can set aside all those feelings and be fair and impartial on this DWI case. Or let's say it's a domestic violence case or a sexual assault case where an individual has previously suffered that sort of trauma. They may not be able to set that aside and not be biased against the defendant on this type of case. We get as many strikes for cause for bias as we can get. So if we can eliminate people from the panel that have shown bias, the judge will give us as many of those as we can get. Then each side has 10 preemptory strikes in a felony case. The state or the defense can strike someone for no reason whatsoever. We didn't like the way they looked at us. We didn't get a very good vibe off of them, whatever. As long as it's not based on race, you can strike them for almost any reason at all. After all those strikes have been done and all the preemptories have been done, then the first 12 people who are left, those are the people that are going to sit on your jury. That's why it's extremely important to try to get jurors to talk and answer questions. Sometimes in questions it might get under their skin, but you have to see how they react. What is their body language? What is their tone of voice? In addition to their answers. So as I said, it's much more of an art than it is a science. In a felony case, you might also get 2 alternates on that jury panel. And these people then come forward and they're going to get sworn in as your jury. The exercise I run my clients through all the time is, imagine that you go to a department store like Dillard's in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day. Who are you going to find there? What type of person are you going to find there at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday? Statistically speaking, probably female, probably middle-aged, probably middle class, probably white. Okay? It's a very generalized statement, but let's go through this exercise. Now, go up to that lady and read her the offense report. Go over the witness statements with her and show her the body cam videos. And then tell her your side of the story. Who's she going to believe? You or the state's evidence? Now, in a county like Harris, of course, we're going to get people of color. We're going to get men on that jury. But understand that these are the types of people that come to jury service. And these are the types of people that are going to listen to the state's evidence and decide whether or not you are guilty or not guilty. So it's very important to try to put yourself in the brain of a potential juror. Look through the eyes of that juror and how are they going to look at the evidence. So hopefully this gave you a little bit more understanding of the jury selection process and what to expect if your case is moving forward to trial. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Have a good day.